Oh, we will.
Yeah.
And we can do talking to ourselves while we're live, because we're live now.
Yeah.
And there's a massive of 2 people watching.
Oh, we will. Yeah.
I'm going to assume that's you and me.
Yep.
So there is that.
Well, there've been 2 watching for a while. So, yeah, I think that's definitely you and me.
Yeah. How long are we going to ramble on a bit before we go serious? Or are we just going to go serious and...
Hey, I thought with this was the joke stream.
Well, yeah, you know what me, talk about topic and all that.
Hi, Warped Reflection. We have an audience.
Hey, we have an audience. Hi there, Warped.
Oh, I've got news for you, Warped. Right, I looked into the voting for the EU elections. Scotland is 1 constituency, and so you are able to vote for Count Dankula.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Didn't I say that last time?
No, she said he's on the other side of the country, which would imply 2 constituencies for Scotland, but it's not. It's all 1.
So you can vote. You can vote for Count Dankula. Doesn't say you should.
No, I didn't say that. No.
I'm in favour. I'm not voting for that commie. Yeah, he's not a commie anymore, isn't he?
No. Don't ruin the joke.
All right. He used to be a commie, though. That's true. Hi there,
Yeah,
Jim.
well, we are nice. Of course, we're N-words. We're nice.
Nice. Hi there, nice folks. Well, nice is so much better than gnarly, so I'm going to go with nice too. There's another N word in it, gnarly. Yeah.
I was going to say knackered, but that's a K.
See, that's the thing with English. He still is at heart. He votes for Sturgeon.
You're kidding? If you say so.
Well, it's Scottish politics anyway. What do I care? But I can understand you caring, Warps. Don't get me wrong.
We see the topic of this stream is politics feels over reels, and for the real feels side, everyone's thoughts on everything is their business. That's part of the problem.
Yeah. But let's start with the topic anyway. We wanted to talk, indeed, we talk politics and feels over reels. And we kind of wanted, or rather, the idea was to bring up stuff that happening to Tommy Robinson, Sargon of Akkad, and then in a lesser extent, Count Dankula. And how the media is portraying their position. I still can't understand that people have a problem with someone saying that he wouldn't commit an act of violence against someone else.
Yeah, well, you see, you're not a political ideologue. Yeah, punish all those suicidal people. That's right. That'll perk them up.
It should be illegal for people to feel bad. I'm going to go literal now, but what if your tactile senses are broken and not functioning? So when you touch someone, you can't really feel what you're touching. Is that also bad? I'm sorry.
Because these people are batshit insane. That's the way I see it too, Warped Reflection.
But I agree with that, Warped Reflection. And the worst part is, and I was hoping to bring this up later in the stream, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in one of our live hangouts earlier, not today, but in a previous live hangout. We've had periods of the media and certain politicians demonizing other candidates before. Now, I'm not so sure about England, but I'm pretty sure this happened in England before as well. But a little more than a decade ago in the Netherlands, we had Pim Fortuyn, who actually won the Dutch election and or was looking to win the Dutch election. and he actually got murdered because of a leftist ideologue who felt that he was a bad guy.
Mhm.
Yes, indeed, Rip Pim. And it's beyond stupidity, because in the Netherlands they then immediately started, oh yeah, no, because not the media, but the politicians were like, oh yeah, no, we shouldn't have demonized him. But if I look at stuff now, I mean, the way they're talking about politicians now, even in the Netherlands, where Thierry Baudet won a lot of seats in the House of Lords, they're still demonizing him. They're still making him out to be an idiot. And it's the same thing that's happening to Tommy in the UK and Sargon in the UK. We're throwing milkshakes on them, or kippers on them, or eggs on them is completely acceptable.
To be fair, in the UK, we have a tradition of it. Many years ago, there was a Labour Deputy Prime Minister under Blair, a guy from the north, and he had been a steward on a cruise ship. He was a bit handy, and someone threw an egg at him, and he hit them for their pains. And so it's actually the egging thing is actually a British political tradition in a way.
Yeah, but some traditions are to be forgotten.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, but it's not new to. It's not new to this environment that those particular things happen.
No, I understand.
And as horrible as it is, eggs and milkshakes are annoyances. They're not dangerous.
Yeah, but that's how it starts, though. I mean, this is the same what happened with Pim Fortuyn in the Netherlands. It started with cake.
Oh, cake's solid.
Yeah, well, not. I mean, how do you call those custard cakes or whatnot? I mean, it's not. An egg is more solid than cake, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It is, in my opinion. But it started with him like that as well, and then in the end, someone killed him. And it's funny because if we look in the UK, where Sargon of Akkad is now being, misquoted with his whole "I wouldn't rape you" thing, and Jess Phillips is all about like, oh yeah, he's getting big on my name and blah blah blah. But the media seems to have forgotten that it's the same Jess Phillips that said that she would knife Jeremy Corbyn in the front. And considering knifing is a genuine problem in the UK, I think that's a little bit more worrying than someone saying, I wouldn't do something. Well, yes, Jess is a vile piece of shit. I can completely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, and she's just a disgusting, opportunistic hypocrite.
So there is something seriously wrong because we have a media. I'm not even just blaming the politicians. Well, obviously, the politicians are to blame as well. But we have a media who's absolutely interested in creating strife, in creating violence.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the hypocrisy. You know, it's like that interview on the Victoria Derbyshire show where he's saying, you, the media, are stoking up violence in people, and they say, oh, so you're admitting that words can produce violence? Well, no, not all words can produce violence. Inflammatory words produce violence.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, he's absolutely proving them that this is also what they are doing, or even more so what they are doing, and they totally ignore that. It's the same with Tommy Robinson. There were reporters talking about how they were completely okay with Tommy Robinson being charged with whatever bullshit crime they came up this time, because he was causing anxiety with some of the Muslim rape gang guys that were in court.
Yeah. Oh,
And that they're-
of all people, I don't care whether they suffer from anxiety.
Yeah, well, there is that, but the worst part is they are talking to him outside of court whilst he is going to court to once again face charges over that bogus claim, and they're doing what they claim he did to those Muslim rapists. And I'm like,
No, I mean,
you're
there
okay.
isn't any honesty in the whole narrative. This is the problem.
Yeah, it's so weird, and it seems that very few people call them out on it. I mean, if you look at LBC, Leading Britain's Discussion, LBC, is it LBC? That
LBC it's leading British. LBC is a London radio station,
and they have a show called Leading Britain's Discussion or something like that.
do they? Oh, okay.
I've seen clips on them on YouTube. I don't listen to it, obviously, but on YouTube I sometimes see stuff and I'm looking into it.
They're kind of Britain's leading talk radio station.
Ah, yes. Okay, well, maybe that's it. But the incredible double standard and hypocrisy that they portray. I mean,
Yeah, well, as I say, I mean, the mistake is to treat them as being honest actors.
but it's not just the media, because politics and the media are all in it. I mean, as Warp said,
Yeah.
reported the same shit the day after Tommy Robinson, but then they're going to say, yeah, but Tommy Robinson did it outside of court, and therefore Tommy Robinson is more to blame. And they actually they have created.
Look, it was obvious he was targeted from the start of that incident.
Yeah.
So as I say, trying to pretend they're honest actors and discuss it as if they're honest actors is the mistake, because they're not.
No, that's true. That's true.
And it's like saying, "Oh, I don't understand." Well, you're not supposed to understand, because they're not being honest. They're not taking positions based on any principle. They're taking positions based on, "Oh, that's our enemy. How can we do our enemy over?"
But at the same time, though, I mean, the new court date that is set for Tommy Robinson, and according to Tommy Robinson, they changed the current how do you call it, indictment 3 times. Well, I haven't seen it, so I don't know, but that's what he says. I'm going to believe him because he's the one indicted. But they put it on the very same date as if he would win in the European election. He has to choose between the European election and court.
Yeah, of course.
How is that not political?
Of course it's political. Of course it's political.
Why is no one
allowed? What do you mean, no one? What do you mean, no one? There isn't a monolith. I keep trying to say this. There isn't a monolith.
No, I know. But why is the mainstream media not picking?
Because they are part of the problem. When you've got the Daily Mail, who rabidly and blindly support the Conservative Party, right? Start using labels like far right to as a denigration. You know that basically they're all in it together. Because if they were ideologically opposed to people like The Guardian, they wouldn't be using the same language and the exact same talking points.
Yeah. I can't understand how they can get away with it time and again.
Because this is the whole point. The reason Sargon's standing and what he hears over and over again is there are no alternatives. You can't go to Labour, you can't go to the Conservatives, you certainly can't go to the Lib Dems. They're the only 3 sizable parties. So if all the parties are in it together, they all have a monolithic viewpoint on these things, what can people do? they can't do anything.
It seems somewhat doubled up. I can understand. I can understand the political parties being in cahoots. Hi there, Daisy Pumpkin. By the way, I can understand the political parties being in cahoots, but I can't understand that nearly all media, even competing media with each other, is somehow in cahoots.
Because it's the establishment, the Westminster bubble, which is the media, as much as the politicians, because they all feed each other. And, Tim Pool put up a video, was it today? Proof that there's journalists and, they're not journalists now, they're activists, because that's what's been churned out of universities for 20 years.
Yeah. I haven't seen the Tim Pool one yet.
No, but I mean, the point is, back in the day, there was always talk on the left about the establishment and what the establishment would do to prevent any genuine radical political advancement. It was all right to have Labour versus the Conservatives as long as Labour kept in their little box. And now Labour are as much a part of that establishment. So you've got the people, all the working class people in the regions who are economically doing far worse than in the southeast area, who are opposed to many of the government's policies, and they've got none of the parties to speak for them.
Yeah, because that's another thing that I found funny, because Labour is Labour only in name. They don't.
Well, they are. No, they aren't. And this is why I've been banging on for a couple of years. The left isn't left anymore. It's authoritarian, and agents of the bloody corporations as much as anything.
Yeah. Well, one could argue that globalism is a left-wing movement.
Well, left-right, it's not left, because the principle of the left originally was for equality in the individual, and these are people who are anti-equality and anti-individual.
Hi there, Paulo Costa, and hi there, Roasted Opinion. I always like to say hi to people.
And the funny thing is so last night I'm listening to a Honey Badger stream, and Alison Tiemann says, "Oh, the left aren't left anymore," and I'm thinking, finally, someone else is seeing it too.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I'm going to say no, the left are still left. But what we thought the left was and what the left really is seems to be.
Well, no, the problem is the left isn't a monolith any more than the right is a monolith.
Fair point.
Because you've got the vertical axis.
True.
And they're authoritarians. They haven't shifted left, they've shifted up. It's all about power, it's all about control, it's all about what do you do when people have a different idea. You don't convince them, you don't talk to them, you literally shut them up and
tell them they're wrong.
Push them down, and tell them they're wrong.
True that. There's something. Oh, sorry guys, that was me being stupid. Nothing happened though. Nothing bad. But there's something scary about it though, because if we look at what's going on now, the left was so much in favor of people like Assange, but at the same time, now that Assange has proven certain things, they don't care about Assange anymore because he comes too close to their argument. The left was all about free speech. Hell, Berkeley is a great example about Berkeley in America. That's where the free speech movement started. And it seems to be that that's where the free speech movement is dying in America at this point in time as well.
I heard a very good take on that, though. It's the same with the way Islam is. They move into a country, and while they're a minority, so you've got to tolerate us. Oh, you're a tolerant society. We need to be tolerated. But the minute they get to a sufficient size, they start demanding intolerance of everyone else.
Yeah, because
And
they are.
Barclay was essentially the same, where the communists were like, oh, we want free speech, right up to the point when they've got the power to deprive others of free speech.
Yeah.
And this is the problem, it's the mistake is taking people at their word, which is not saying that you can't take anyone at the word, but you have to be, to pardon the expression, skeptical about it.
That's why I always, at work, I always tell the kids, trust is a good thing, control is better.
You see, I mean, on the theme of tonight's chat, it's, you've got one side who are all about actions. You judge people on their actions. Feminists are not for equality because their actions repeatedly and overwhelmingly demonstrate they are not for equality. The other side is all about the words. As long as the words are right, that's all that matters. And so it's all about, oh, you sound so hateful, because it's all about the words and how it's expressed and the whole political correctness bollocks.
Yeah.
And that is the division, it seems to me. The people, and it's not a left-right thing. It's not a left-right thing. It's because it might be the left doing it now, but it was certainly the right in the UK doing it 40 years ago.
Yeah,
Mary Whitehouse and Lord Longford and all those were the ones pushing the censorship, pushing exactly the same attitudes that feminists are now pushing for in the current age.
Yeah.
And it's not left or right, it's authoritarian versus libertarian.
It is, well, upsetting is the wrong word, but it is scary. Because and this is something that Jimmy said as well. I'm Dutch, I'm sick of the word tolerance, but tolerance is basically the catch-all. If you're not tolerant, as you said yourself, if you're not tolerant, that's bad. But you have to be tolerant, and they don't have to be tolerant back, because...
Well, it's a paradox. If you're too tolerant, you allow in the intolerant, and you allow the intolerant to then suppress you. So what you have to do is actually go back to principle and say, I'm tolerant of everyone who ascribes to these principles.
Well,
if you don't ascribe to these principles, you are an enemy, and therefore we don't have to be intolerant. We don't have to be tolerant to an enemy.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be honest. I'm not tolerant. For those of you out there who weren't sure yet, and I always tell at work, I tell my kids as well, tolerance is a lie. It's not nice to say something like that, but tolerance is a lie. I don't tolerate people. I accept people. Even if I disagree, then it's an acceptance, but we disagree on something. But to tolerate is the utmost form of discrimination. To me, anyway. I feel toleration is, in a way, discrimination. Because, okay, I disagree with you, but I'll tolerate it. And then you can almost hear the for now bit. I'll tolerate it for now. And to me, it's amazing that there are people who actually think that's a positive thing. Oh, no, yeah, no, I'll tolerate it for now. Say what? How is that in any way liberal? Because tolerating isn't, in fact, to me, tolerating is an act of power.
Yeah.
I disagree with your rights. I disagree with what you're doing, but for now, I'll tolerate it.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, to me, tolerating is a bad thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of people who disagree with me, and there are plenty of people I disagree with, but I don't tolerate them. I accept them.
Yeah, but I will only accept people up to a point.
Well, that's something else, and there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to accept everything unlimited. There's certain things I certainly won't accept. But if I won't accept it, I sure as hell won't tolerate it.
Yeah.
If you tolerate this, then your children will be next. That's one of those earworms, isn't it?
What?
If you tolerate this, then your children will be next. Which is true, funny enough. It's a terrible song, but it's true. It's an earworm. And
I don't know what an earworm is.
it gets stuck in your head.
Oh, right. Okay. I am fortunately very rarely suffer such things.
Well, and the most funny thing is, I somehow, somewhere, I started hearing, if you tolerate this, then your children Moulinex. Moulinex being a household appliance.
Right.
It's well, yeah, but that's the thing, Daisy. We shouldn't accept the unacceptable, but somehow we should tolerate it.
Well, and this came back to the central argument, and it's your argument. So I'm not going to claim any credit for what you've been saying. It's about culture.
Yeah.
It's not about race, religion, or sexuality, any of these other irrelevancies. It's about culture.
Yeah.
If you can only have a society that has, I won't say a homogenous culture, but a common thread of culture.
Well, I would say homogenous.
Well, no. I mean, again, you then end up in a problem of what do you mean by homogenous?
Well, having
because in the UK, you can argue that Scottish culture isn't the same as
but
Northern English culture, and that's not the same as Southern English culture.
I know, and I agree. I agree with that. I don't think homogenous means that they have to be all the same. But
that's what it does mean technically.
Yeah,
and that's why I said common strand, not homogenous.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
That you must have a common core, something you agree on as the important aspects of your culture. And then people who came to the UK from, say, India were like, yeah, or the Caribbean were like, yeah, we like this. We're happy to call ourselves British. We're happy to accept this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's smooth and there haven't been problems, but generally it worked. But when you've got thousands and hundreds of thousands of people coming and saying, no, we demand you change your laws. We demand you don't serve these things and you do serve these things in your shops. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a serious problem. Paulo Costa in Portugal, MEP candidates are campaigning for our national parliamentary election, which is in October. I can't say they are in the Netherlands, but they are kind of trying to make it well known that certain political parties are very much in favor or very much not in favor of Europe. And in a way, they are tying it to the national elections.
Yeah, well, that makes sense if they're that close together.
Well,
you wouldn't expect anything else, to be honest.
In Portugal, I can understand that because it's indeed a few months. In the Netherlands, we just had an election, and the next one is, I think, in 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, here we've just had those local elections, and the European issue dominated the outcome of that to a very large extent.
Yeah, it's logical if it's close together.
Yeah.
In the Netherlands, I see campaigns, how the national political parties are being portrayed, and this is a reason to vote for them for the European Parliament. But at the same time, to be really honest, I don't see how an MEP can argue for anything other than this is what our political stance is in our own country. Because we know they have very little, if anything, to say in the European Parliament.
Yeah, well, that's why they have to stand on national issues, because what can they say about European-wide issues? The last thing they want to do is draw attention to the fact that it's all just a sinecure anyway.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Warped Reflection. The MEPs in the UK shouldn't be dealing with this shit because they should have been out already.
Yeah, of course, but we should have been out 3 years ago.
And this is why I find it so incredibly funny that UKIP was one of the first parties to actually have MEPs, whereas Labour and
But only because UKIP are actually on the ball on the issue.
yeah, they're paying attention, and it's incredible. It's really incredible. It's a good thing from UKIP. Don't get me wrong. It's a compliment to their awareness.
Well, that's because, to be fair, they're not actually distracted by the business of Brexit because they aren't in Parliament.
Yeah, that is also true.
I mean, the other problem you've got is the two main parties both have significant Brexit elements to their support, and yet all the MPs, or the majority of the MPs, are for remaining.
Yeah, which is I still can't wrap my head around how so many politicians are in favor of Remain, even though the Brexit referendum was anything but at least very clear.
Because of how politics works. In a representative democracy, you get to pick the person to best represent you of those who stand. And the problem is the parties constrain who stands. And as a result, you don't get a free choice, because if somebody stands as an independent or for a smaller party, they're still not going to get in. And even if they did get in, they're one MP amongst 630, and therefore insignificant.
Mm.
And that is the problem. So, you know, I keep saying the British system was designed for the mid to late 18th century. The vote was extended only after severe qualms, which were allayed by the fact that they realized actually nothing was going to change if they could control the parties. If they could ensure it didn't really matter who got in, because the people who could stand were part of a bubble, then it doesn't matter. You can give people a choice, because what's the choice? The choice between this person who thinks these things and that person who thinks the same things but with a slight twist.
I still don't understand how so many people out there don't recognize this.
Well, it's not that they don't recognize it. You see, this is the whole point. All my life, I've heard people say, there's no point in voting for politicians because they're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's a widespread, long-standing attitude. It's not that people don't recognize it. There's nothing anyone can do about it.
Yeah, well, I believe you, and I, in all fairness, I have that same feeling a lot of times. But if I look in my work field, there are actually people who look at me all doughy-eyed when I talk to them about, listen, this is what they're saying and this is what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, surely that's not true. No, that can't be true. No, that can't be right. But it's happening. Even after the Pim Fortuyn thing in the Netherlands, people don't want to recognize that our media and our politicians are actually changing the narrative so badly that we don't know whether we're coming or going. And there is something, how do you call this, dangerous? Worrying? There's a member of the Elvis and Jetty party standing in my constituency. Elvis and Jetty party? What's that? Is that something like the Ministry of Silly Walks?
No. I'm just about there was always a party called the Monster Raving Loony Party,
Oh,
whose,
I remember.
leader was Screaming Lord Such till he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And they always stood for the general elections, put up candidates, and obviously they never won. But the point isn't anyone can stand, okay? I think you have to get so many signatures to stand. They changed the law to stop too many cranks standing, so that if you don't get enough of the vote, you lose your deposit,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to put up a bond to stand, and you get it back if you are a serious candidate who gets enough votes.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone can stand, but that's not the point. The point is, when you've got 630 constituencies and you have to win half of them to form a government,
You're not going to be part of it anyway.
the barrier to making inroads is so large. That's why UKIP got 15% of the vote and one MP. Why? Because that 15% of the vote is massively distributed, and so they only won in one seat. Under PR, they'd have 15% of the seats, but we don't have PR in this country, which is what I'm saying. They designed the system to be highly resilient against change. They designed a system that wouldn't allow minority voices, but insisted tyranny by the majority.
Yeah.
Except for the majority isn't even a majority, because you get a massive majority government with about 40% of the vote. So it's actually a tyranny of a minority. But because all branches of government are condensed into the House of Commons, you literally have a prime minister and her cabinet who run the country.
Yeah.
It's weird. They want to call it democracy? No, and that's what I've been saying. It's not a democracy. It never has been a democracy. It's just a sham.
Well, in the Netherlands, I like the idea of democracy that we have here, because in this country, there is no first around the post system. All votes count. And because of that, we have a lot of parties, and none of them will have the absolute majority. So they are condemned to working together. Now, in theory, that's a good idea. But what happens is that political parties are already excluding others. So the number one can be excluded from parliament if the number 2, 4, 6, and 7 can together create a majority of seats in the House, and with that, control the government. Now, I'd rather have it in the Netherlands, for example, that we would say, okay, you know what? Number 1 and number 2 are forced to work together. If they need a third or fourth party, that's perfectly fine. But the number 1 and number 2 should be forced to work together.
Yeah, but should be forced. I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? Who forces it?
Government.
What is the mechanism? You can't, to force somebody implies force.
Yeah.
Potentially violence.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying. So who is actually going to impose that upon the government?
And that's the difference between a government or a government based on laws. If we have that law, then that law should be the one and only push.
You mean a constitution?
And the Netherlands does have a constitution. But that's not part of it. Actually, the old system was that the queen, because now we have a king, but we used to have a queen not too long ago. The queen had to. She was very much part of the forming of the new government. So after the election, the queen still had a role to fulfill in the forming of the government. And then the politicians were like, "Yeah, but we don't want that anymore." So the royalty needs to be taken out of the whole system. So now they only have, how do you call it? Ceremonial role.
Oh, right. See, technically, everything in the United Kingdom is the royalties, not the people's.
How ludicrous, by the way. Well, a lot of things in the Netherlands happens in name of the royalty, but they, it happens in their name, but they don't really have a say. Which is
well. See, I mean, it's like it's going through the motions. I forget what the term is. It's a symbolic role. So the government goes after a election. Somebody from the biggest party, if they have a majority, will go to the Queen and ask to form a government. But it's not really asking as in the Queen's got any place to reject that.
Yeah.
And likewise, it used to be, before they had the Fixed Term Parliament Act, the Prime Minister was the one who decided when to call an election and would go to the Queen and ask to dissolve the government, because it's the Queen's government. And again, the Queen wasn't in a position to say no. It's a symbolic role, but that's the setup.
That's almost the same here, but in this country, the Queen actually can say no. This has actually happened. That politicians went to the Queen because they wanted to dissolve. They wanted to have early elections, and they wanted to dissolve the current government, bring it back to an absolute minimum, so to keep the daily things going. But then till the next election, they wouldn't do anything new. And the Queen Beatrix actually said, no, you can do early elections, but you keep doing your bloody job, you motherfuckers.
Well, you see, the thing is
those words, but yeah.
But that's the thing, because the whole point about a government is supposed to be that, you know, you need elements to take it out of the capricious whim of the individual. And that is the role of a second House of Parliament or a head of state, is to do that. You know, to say, are you sure? Have you thought this thing through? Because if someone had said that to Theresa May a couple of years ago when she did that disastrous election, they might have made her think twice about it.
It's incredible. I've actually heard someone comparing Theresa May to Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah, as in Theresa May is everything Margaret Thatcher wasn't.
Well, yeah, that's the reality of it. But no, I was actually talking about, well, yeah, but just like Margaret Thatcher, Theresa May, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, the only thing that she does equal to Margaret Thatcher is breathe, and even that is debatable.
Oh, no. She has similar body parts, but that's about it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, oh dear, Theresa May is horrible.
She is.
She's a traitor.
And that's the thing, though. And I see this with a lot of politics in Europe, but in the Netherlands as well. I really think people should open up avenues to say, you know what? I mean, you're our politicians, but you've betrayed our trust.
Well, yeah.
And I mean, it's not something like, okay, well, you did something I didn't like, therefore you're bad. No. I am somewhat convinced that there is plenty of reason to start treason cases against certain politicians.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, this is a wide-held view. But the problem is we've now got politicians. I saw a couple of clips of it. I forgot on whose channel, where they're arguing that to abide by the referendum vote is totalitarianism. This is how upside down their view is, how clown worldish it is. It's like,
Yeah, I saw that too. Oh no, the current referendum is totalitarianism, so we should force people to have a second referendum so they
Yeah.
can change their mind.
And then a third, and then a fourth, and a fifth.
But this is somewhat the whole European Union bullshit thing, to be honest, because this is why in the Netherlands we had 3 referenda about the Ukrainian deal.
Mm.
And the third time they got what they wanted. So there was no more referendum after that.
Yeah, no, and these, you know, we hear these things, and then you say, "Oh, why can't people see it?" People know that the European Union works by making people vote and vote and vote until they get the result they want.
Yeah.
So people do know it. The question is, what can you do about it as an individual?
Hi there, Michael. It's kind of funny because today on the radio I heard them talking about, yeah, but we're really happy with the European Union. We should be really happy with the European Union because since the European Union, there is free trade in Europe. And I'm like, no, we had that before the European Union.
Yeah, and it's like the feminists claiming to have got women the vote. It's like, no, that's a rewriting of history.
And well, yeah, it is. I mean, the whole idea that, yeah, okay, one could say that the euro is because of the European Union.
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely, you wouldn't have a euro without it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I have to admit that I understand that. I mean, there are people who say there has something good from it because of the one coin, it's easier to trade amongst all European states. Fair enough. But we already had trade between the European Union.
Yeah, and yet if you go to the southern Mediterranean countries, the Greeks especially detest the euro because everything shot up in price when it came in.
Yeah, well, the same went for Italy.
Yeah, so, that's what I said, southern Mediterranean countries.
Yeah, but at the same time, even before the European Union, when we were still the economic European blah blah blah. I forgot the words for it. Sorry. Well, before we were the European Union, we were the EEC or something. Or
yeah, we were the European Economic Community, and before that, the Coal and Steel Federation or something.
Yeah. But once we were the economic unity thing, we already had everything that the European Union now. Yeah, thank you, Leprechaun. Everything that we have now in the European Union, we already had. What we didn't have was an overarching totalitarian group of people telling us how to live our bloody lives.
Yeah.
And they're actually telling people that no, because if it weren't for the EU, we wouldn't have had all these things. And I'm like, but we had all these things before the EU.
And that's why they're destroying education, because people knowing inconvenient facts gets in the way of their narrative.
Yeah. It's worrying.
Well, it's actually it's not that surprising, is what I would say. Because it's just, you have these dynamics in society, and in general, those who had the power widened it and extended it to others with the utmost reluctance.
Yeah,
and have all, you know, and those, you know, when you think about it, you know, and I hear people now talk about, oh yeah, only people who pay, only property owners should pay, taxpayers should have a vote or something. And it's like, which is exactly the system we had in the 19th century before we extended the franchise to everyone, because both situations have flaws. If everyone gets the vote, the poor can vote for welfare. But if the poor don't have the vote, the people who already have things will make sure that they keep being the ones who have things.
Yeah, things, yeah.
And so neither's a good situation.
Well, I'm going to say,
But
this is my thinking, that the ones that pay taxes, everyone who pay taxes should have a vote. Does that mean you have to have ownership? No, because if you have a job, you're already paying taxes. But if you're living on welfare, yeah, I'm going to say that might be a good reason not to have a vote. Because obviously you're going to vote in favor of your welfare. Sleep well, Jimmy.
Yeah, but here's a problem. That's only one aspect of government.
True that.
It's only one aspect of government, and this is the fundamental problem. Because the reason the vote got extended was because of war.
Yeah.
Because people had to fight. And you can't have people being sent to war without a say in the decision-making process, no matter how weakly. And so the problem is if you try and find any one criterion by which you can say this gives you the vote or not gives you the vote, which one? What aspect of government? And with governments now having their finger in so many aspects of life, it's, how could you even make a decision?
Yeah.
And why would that? And the minute you exclude people, how would that not be open to abuse?
No, yeah, that's correct. Anywho, considering we've been busy for nearly an hour, and the idea was that this was going to be the short stream.
Yeah, for an hour, 10 minutes.
That's true. We can go for an hour.
But no, sorry, because what I was trying to say is, with this idea that it's only those who have a stake in society should get to elect people, right?
Yeah.
And this was the whole aristocratic principle, because the aristocrats had all the land and therefore the biggest stake.
True.
Okay.
I disagree with that, but
that was the concept, right?
Yeah,
and that's exactly what we're now seeing with the corporations and all those. Oh, we're the ones who've got the most stake, therefore it's legitimate we pressure the government in our own interest. But the point is that the interests of the very wealthy are not the same as the interests of the country or the people.
No,
and it's a lie that it is part of the problem, because people are now being increasingly persuaded to think, oh no, you've got to have a stake to be part of the political process. But then what do you do if you're born without a stake? You never get to be part of the political process, and that way is worse. And
I would say, how do I? I would say that everyone who earns, so everyone who pays taxes, should have a right to vote.
No, because
let me finish my thought. Because they do have a stake in our society. They do. If you work, you're paying for our society. But the ones who are not able to work, well, it's double though, because there are people who are not able to work who can still have they can still be contributing members of a society, even though they don't contribute financially. So there is
no, as I say, the problem is the minute you introduce a criterion, it's open to abuse, and it's open to locking people out.
Yeah.
And with all these things, people can say, oh, it sounds great to do this, or it sounds great to do that, but they never think through the consequences and the possible ways it can go wrong.
Yeah.
And
correct.
Everything looking from here doesn't tell you anything about how society is going to be when we get to there you're proposing. And there aren't easy answers. This is the problem, is the lie of politics is that you can elect one government to decide for everybody. everybody doesn't want the same thing. The same one solution isn't good for everybody in any circumstance. So you can't have one government doing one policy in one way and somehow that's better. For whom? It's always for some and not for others.
Yeah, that's the downside of trying to micromanage macro.
Well, no, even if you pare down government, you know, at some point, everything a government does will be favourable to some and not favourable to others.
Yeah,
and it's the unwillingness of the political or the inability of the political system to acknowledge that fundamental truth, but instead to pretend that you can be good for everybody. You can pretend that these policies, this approach is the solution. And I don't blame the politicians. It's fundamental in the system, because if you're going to get elected, you have to lie. It's a sad fact, but it's true.
Well, I'm an optimist, or rather, maybe I think I'm an optimist. I don't know, but I like to think that there are politicians out there that will tell you the truth, even if it's not what you want to hear.
Yeah, but we know, especially with the media, that that a politician has no chance, because if they say the truth, they'll get crucified, and if they lie, they'll get crucified. If they propose something, they'll get crucified, and if they then change their mind, they get crucified for changing their mind. Because it's not about sincere beliefs or principle, it's about clickbait and readership and profit motive.
It is. You're correct, though. I wish you weren't, but you are correct. But it's that's the thing, though, and I hate it. For example, when politicians talk about, but you shouldn't go for him because he's a populist, as if that's a bad word. But the whole idea of politics is based on populism.
Well, duh. What is getting elected but being populist?
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's the way that they've manipulated language. So that, we start seeing articles. If somebody is polite and reserved and just gets on with their life and works hard, they're a danger. Keep your eye on them.
Yeah.
And it's like, how fucked up is that?
Why do people keep falling for it? It doesn't make sense. It's something that actually worries me. Because this isn't unlike the bullshit that happened in the Weimar Republic.
Well, you get two problems, okay? The first problem is, by suppressing the ability of dissenters to speak, which is what they've been doing, no one knows that they aren't alone. So that the authoritarian vocal minority can present itself as the majority, even though they're not, because everyone else is too quiet and too afraid to voice an opinion. That's the first thing. The second thing is the deliberate strategy of drip feeding lies to create a false understanding of reality, so that when the latest lie sits on top of it, it is consistent with that lie, but not with reality.
Yeah.
And so you get all those people talking to Sargon, and they're going, "Oh, UKIP are creating an atmosphere of hate."
Okay, how?
Yeah, how? Because the rest of us are like going, but they're saying nothing hateful. They're not anti-immigrant. They're not. They're just saying we need to regain control of what's happening in our country over time. But when people perpetually go, "Oh, UKIP are hateful, UKIP are hateful, UKIP are hateful," and they're not, without ever substantiating the claim, other people will go, "Oh, then UKIP must be hateful." But
Well,
they are equally unable to substantiate it because they're not even hearing it first, and they're just parroting this general sentiment because that's how social attitudes and social control works.
yeah, social control, social engineering. But it's even funnier because if I look at Tommy Robinson, for example, I think it was today or yesterday that he posted a video on him talking to a crowd of people.
Mhm.
There's a group protesting him. Fair enough. That group is protesting him because he's a racist and blah, blah, blah. You know the standard bullshit.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a completely white middle class group.
yeah,
But the people standing with Tommy Robinson are of all sorts of ethnicity.
yeah.
How stupid can you be? Oh, no, he's the racist. I'm the good guy because I'm against racism. Yeah, but he's got black people standing with him.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have no black people standing with you. How can you not see the fact that you're on the wrong side of this argument?
Well, that's ideological delusion for you.
Yeah, that's true. But it's somewhat.
It's because they're basically being brainwashed like into a cult. They engage in cult-like behavior, and their thinking process isn't rational anymore.
Yeah,
Or, as Warp says, they're batshit crazy.
yeah. There was a YouTuber I saw not too long ago. She's a huge YouTuber, 100,000 subscribers line of YouTube. So I forgot her name. I have to look it up again because I haven't subscribed to her. But she made a list of the 10 rules for the
Radicals?
well, not radicals, but the left. You have to allow this. You have to believe in that. You have to. And
Right. That's 10 dogmas.
Well, yeah, probably.
No, they're dogmas. If you have to believe, that's a dogma.
Yeah, fair enough. But I thought I printed.
Catechisms, probably.
I thought I printed out that list, but I can't seem to locate it really fast. So.
Well, I'm sure it's changed. Because I'm not convinced that there's any consistency amongst them.
Well, no. I mean, she made it not too long ago. I guess I'll have to look it up. Maybe it'll be a nice one for next week's Mod Wayne tries to explain or tries to understand bit. I have to look into it. I can't find it now. I'll look for it and I'll send it to you as well, mate.
Okay.
It's quite interesting, to be honest. Did I put it here? Did I put it in one of my pockets? Obviously, that is an option, but the answer to that is no. I have the list, though. I can't remember where I left it. Oh, well. For next time. Well, one of the rules, indeed, was you're not allowed to question certain things.
Yeah.
Are we familiar with the acronym of BACON?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No, when I asked him if he was gammon, because calling someone gammon is a particularly loaded term in the United Kingdom.
We're gammon, aren't we?
No, I'm not gammon.
You're not?
No.
Okay. I thought gammon was being older white man.
No. The gammon is about going red-faced with apoplexy.
Oh.
That's why it's gammon.
You can type out bitches, don't worry.
No, it says blacks. Not bitches, blacks.
I thought it was an I. Okay, fair enough. You can type blacks as well, mate. I'm not worried about that either. It's a descriptive word.
Bastardic comes asshole, I presume. No, it was bitches. It was an I. Well, they don't use capitals.
Listen,
He used a capital I and a small s. So I have absolutely and not enough ats.
listen. My brother is a dog. How do you call them? Breather. And yes, plenty of bitches. Don't forget about it. I can understand that though, people. Anyway, we have been busy for almost an hour. I think we've reached the hour. I'm not quite sure. Well, we went slightly over it. We are going to call it quits now. I did enjoy our talk, John. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I did enjoy the people in the chat joining in. So I will.
Yeah, I thought you said breather too. Walked. They pronounce D's and THs as funny over there. That's why they're the Netherlands, even though they're the Netherlands.
Ah, right. No,
well, you are, because you use a D and we use TH.
But I'm not quite sure if I hear it correctly then. Netherlands, that's TH, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Breeder, that's a D, isn't it?
Breather, you said.
No, it's a breeder.
No, but it sounded like breather.
Are you now making fun of my speech impediment?
Yeah. That's my main role.
I'm feeling offended.
Yeah, you sound it. You sound just as offended as Jess Phillips.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
As long as you don't call the police on me in 4 years' time. And you have the evidence because you've got this stream.
Oh, well, there you have it. Hey, but anyway, thank you all for coming. It was great fun to have you here. And I hope you enjoyed the little talk John and I had about this interesting topic. I have to admit, though, these are really interesting talks. I'm really looking forward to our next one. And with that, I'm going to say bye-bye. So are you going to say bye-bye too, John?
Bye-bye too, John.
Okay, and I'm going to